All right, we are live. Are we on the right channel? Let's see. Is it the Vin and Sori? Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. Let's try to get on Facebook and let folk know that it's time to rock and roll. I am so freaking thirsty right now. Good Lord. Woo. Let me see. Anybody up yet? Leah. Hermes Band. Leah, if you could do me the favor of Carmen in the house. Leah, if you could do me the favor of posting the link to this at Middle America and on the Village page on Facebook. Thank you very kindly. What's up, everybody? Beautiful Vin. What's up, beautiful Corey Taylor? How you beautiful people doing? I think I upset the right wingers in MA today. Hey, we warn people. It's a free speech environment. Ever reacted to the ocean, like the literal ocean or the band ocean? What's up, Soldier Vike? John Brown, Butter Pickman. You're talking about John Brown, the abolitionist John Brown? Big homie Dan. Here's the oppressed black man himself. No, sir. No, sir. Brother Minister Farrakhan doesn't create any oppressed people. I'm a liberated Negro. What's going on, Dan? Hey, Luke. What's up, Luke? How you doing? How's the apocalypse treating everyone? Yo, 2020 is crazy. Crazy. 2010 is insane. I am so freaking thirsty. Farrell Bollinger, what's up? What's up? Have you seen The Chosen on Facebook? Yeah, I'm actually an investor in Chosen. I heard about that thing like almost 2 years ago when they were doing the initial crowdfunding, and so we put some funds into it, and it is really an awesome. The dialogue is very, very unique, really unique dialogue. What's next, Vin? What's up for July? I have no idea. Thanks, Rick Vertigo. Appreciate you. Safe over there in Australia. 2020 is crazy. Yeah. Best year ever. Oh, Dan, Dan, I really wish you would have stayed with your YouTube channel, bro. I really felt like your YouTube channel was important. Really, really important. But I get it. I know the grind. I know the grind. How you doing? What's up, Kel? I'm alive, Kel. It's all good. Is Gershok going to do Covers Week? We're literally holding Covers Week hostage because of Gershok. So Gershok are our people, so we gotta ride for them. So I'm waiting for Gershok, but then we'll be ready to go. New York's on fire, I bet. Stay safe. Greetings from Peru. What's up? How's the fan holding up with the WAC 2020? How's the fam holding up? I mean, we'll be all right. Donald! Thank you very much, Donald. I appreciate it. Tool canceled their tour today. I'm very sad about that. Donald, my man, good to see you. Trump just donated. Thank you very much, Donald. We really appreciate it, my G. Is Trump a contributor to Vin and Sori's channel? I don't know. I don't know, man. Kia Ora from New Zealand. Love your work, mate. Is that a band? Oh, yeah, George Soros, I'm sure. I'm sure it was all manipulated by George Soros. Trump always supports the black community. Yeah, we listened to, I forgot. I wanted to say something about a band that we just listened to, but I don't want to give it away, so I'm not going to say anything. Vin Rim UK, what's up? Vin, can you dab with this thing? People at church were doing that for a long time. I was trying to figure out what was going on. Have there been a lot of protests in Maine? Yeah, I got invited to a protest, but I didn't go. But yeah, there's been a couple protests in Maine. Somebody invited me to go speak or whatever, and I decided against it. Nice shirt. Yeah, I'm rocking the J Dispirited shirt. I actually wear this to the gym a lot, and I actually this is a shirt that I would legitimately wear even if it wasn't from Jay. So I don't know what you guys are going to do with that. I don't know if that counts as a commercial, but I genuinely like it. I like the feel. I like the cut. I like the stuff on the back. It's really good stuff. People are so angry. Yeah, people are angry. Anger is a gift sometimes. Vin's church shirt. Why is the Old Testament God such a vindictive rat bastard and nothing like his alleged son in the New Testament? Hey, Peter Samuelson. Oh my goodness. When Sori hears that you're here, she's probably gonna start crying. Yeah, I understand your people's perception of the quote Old Testament God versus the New Testament God. Quite frankly, you know, I spent the most of my childhood hanging out with the Old Testament God. I didn't really, for some reason, I thought Jesus was boring. I thought Moses was cooler than Jesus when I was a kid. So I just hung out mostly in the Old Testament. And I got to tell you, I don't really see the Old Testament God as a mean, vindictive bastard. I mean, look, the first murder happened, right, with Cain. Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? And then he lies to God, says he didn't kill his brother. And God says, okay, guy, the jig's up. I know you killed your brother. He's right there. What's wrong with you? Cain never apologizes, never repents. And then the only thing Cain's worried about is whoever finds me will kill me. And God says, nope, I'll protect you. I'll be your personal bodyguard. And Cain goes off. He doesn't care about God ever again, but God follows him all the days of his life and protects him and gives him children and lets him build cities and create cultures and all that. So my perception of the Old Testament God was that he was actually very patient and nice and almost too good to people. Whoa, bros, thank you very freaking much. Thank you very much, sir. I really, really appreciate it. So the Old Testament God to me was actually very, 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 very patient. It wasn't until like I became a young adult where I even heard of this concept of the Old Testament God is mean and New Testament God is nice. Jesus talked about hell and hellfire and all this other stuff. You didn't hear a lot about eternal hellfire in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, you almost never hear about in the Old Testament. It's all over the place in the New Testament. So, and if I had 5 hours to break it down to you, among the members of the Trinity, Jesus is actually the one you don't mess with. Jesus is actually the guy who will kill you. And God the Father, who the Old Testament God, is usually restraining Jesus from destroying people. So, yeah. So I just never had that. I never had that perception of the Old Testament God and New Testament God. Man, that is so woke to fight an injustice by destroying your own neighborhoods. No, I don't think it's woke to do that. I think it's silly and counterproductive. You know, and speaking of the Bible, so you had the Israelites, they're in slavery for hundreds of years, and Moses wasn't a slave, he was a prince, right? You know the whole story where Moses is like secretly kind of funneled into the Egyptian, you know, aristocracy. So he goes out for a walk one day and he sees a Egyptian taskmaster treating a Israelite slave in a pretty brutal fashion, right? Says he dealt harshly with him. So Moses looks at that and he kills the taskmaster. He kills him and then he buries his body in the sand, right? And then the next day, Moses goes out for a walk again and he sees two Israelites fighting each other. And Moses says, "Why are you guys fighting each other?" And one of the Israelites looks around and he says, "Are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian?" And that was something that was always strange to me. I was like, why are these guys fighting each other instead of killing their oppressor? And it's because a slave, a person who has a mindset of a defeated person, feels so defeated by their oppressor that they're too afraid to go after their oppressor and kill him. So they take out their aggression on each other. Whereas a person who's a liberated person is going to look at the oppressor and kill the oppressor, not their own people. So I agree. I think it's silly for Black people to destroy their own communities. But I was never taught I was a slave. What's up, E-Fog? What's going on, E-Fog? How you doing, buddy? Do I think the White House should be in ashes? I don't think that it needs to get there. There's a difference between federal and state in America, and so I don't think it has to get to that degree for change to take place. What's up, Ryan? What do you think is the solution to the issues we face? Well, obviously, as a Christian, I believe if everybody would just practice the Sermon on the Mount, that we'd all get along swimmingly. It's not the Black community destroying their community. It's Antifa doing it. I'm no fan of Antifa, but I'm very, very skeptical of the idea that it's only Antifa who's doing the physical agitations. I think one of the strengths in their methodology is that they don't, they're very good about hiding their leadership and just saying, hey, we're just an ideology. We're not an organization. But the bad side of that is, since you refuse to kind of coagulate around an actual leader, now anybody can do some craziness in your name, and there's really no deniability. You can't say you're an anarchist with no rules, and then somebody does some violence in the name of Antifa and then say, that's not us. We don't have that as a policy. So sorry, it's one or the other. Hey, Vin, is it bad to have told a person to leave their children at home for protest? Julio, it depends on how old the kids are. You know, I've got a 14-year-old, so that wouldn't be a problem. But if they're all little babies, then obviously not. What's going on? Seven Dusted in the house. Steven the Greatsman in the house. Bricktown, what's up, Vin? Just got home from the protests here. Cool, man. Sore as heck, but it was more than worth it to be part of history. There you go, Bricktown. Yeah, man. I mean, it's a cool opportunity. You know, you get that photo op with Bernie when he paid an actual price, and it's reverberating, 40, 50 years later, and you're going to be able to tell your kids that you were part of it, my guy. How do you feel about moderates, Vin? It depends on how you're defining moderates, I think. Space is fake? I don't know about that. I got to tell you, full disclosure, I'm not a flat earther, and I'm not a moon landing denier. Sori's still skeptical about the moon landing, and I see where she's coming from, but I'm not one of those people. I don't think space is fake. Shout out to everybody who does, though. Much respect. Where I'm at, I don't see racism. Everyone seems to get along well. This may be screwed, and if you think so, let me know. Could this more of a class struggle than anything? Well, I've said over and over again that, let me give you an example. There's a Sudanese guy, right? And Sudanese guy just sitting there, black as anything, black as the background of the screen. And it's gone viral. The cops come and say, hey, you fit the description. And the Sudanese guy's like, man, get away from me. Get away from me. So they go and they arrest this guy, right? And then they reach in his pocket. Sure enough, this brother works for the FBI. Right? I sent this to a couple families and members of mine, and we all got a pretty good chuckle out of it for obvious reasons. And so as soon as they found out this brother was from the FBI, they immediately uncuffed him and whatever. And then you have Denzel Washington. I don't know if you guys saw that, where he got in the middle of a situation and he was able to kind of smooth out the situation. So I do think class is applicable when you are a black male that fits the description. If you're of a certain class, and you're going to be treated differently. And that's one of the reasons I get treated differently when I interact with police, because I put out a certain type of energy that they interpret as, this guy's got people behind him and we're going to end up in some court somewhere if we don't treat this guy properly. So I do think class operates there. But as far as race goes, yeah, there's an absolute race problem with the police and black people. I mean, look, Ahmaud Arbery, we just heard today that when one of those guys shot Mr. Arbery, they stood over his body and said, "Effing nigger." And the DA, a lot of people don't know this about the Arbery situation. The DA refused to prosecute the case. The DA actually called up Arbery's mother and said, "Hey, your son was involved in a burglary and he's dead," which was a lie. And so that's a situation where you say, okay, show me a time when the state DA or the district attorney, show me a time when black folks can stalk a white person, hit them with their truck, blow them away, and stand over them and say effing cracker, and then walk off without even an indictment or a grand jury discussion, where the DA will lie to the victim's mother. Show me a time when that can happen, and then, in vice versa, and then we'll have a situation. So obviously, race obviously plays a role in that type of situation. Here we go. Cultural Marxism. Well, I don't believe that Marx was wrong on everything that he proposed. So, the cultural Marxism discussion, I know a lot of people on the right like to use that as a sort of, way to dismiss people. But people were calling Dr. King a cultural Marxist. So I don't think Marx was wrong about everything. Sounds like someone is trying to incite a race war when we have blacks going down the street telling white people to bow down and apologize for their white privilege. Well, I mean, I would just say, what would you like black people to do? When Colin Kaepernick knelt, even though Colin Kaepernick, you guys remember, it was Nate Boyer, the Green Beret, because originally Cap was just sitting down during the pledge. It was actually a Green Beret that said, "Hey, when we lose one of our brothers, we kneel. So how about you kneel when the anthem comes on?" And Kaepernick said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll kneel." And then Kaepernick said, "I'm kneeling because the flag is supposed to represent freedom, justice, and equality, and that's not our lived experience as black people. And so that's why I'm kneeling, until we can live up to the ideals of what the flag is supposed to represent. And I'm also kneeling in honor of the troops who've died." That's what he said. And the majority of white America refused to hear what he said, "No, you're disrespecting the flag. You have no respect for our country." And then our president got on, called him and everybody else sons of bitches who did it, and said that they should all be fired. So black people cannot even protest in their own way. Now, first of all, I think it was a mistake for Kaepernick to do that. I don't think Kaepernick should have listened to Nate Boyer, because it's kind of a ridiculous thing to ask the people that you're protesting against how you should protest. I don't think the Sons of Liberty were going to the Brits and saying, "How should we protest for you guys?" But even when he does that, it still doesn't matter, because his entire movement got bastardized by Fox News and all the rest of it. They turned it into about being against America and unpatriotic. So we're not allowed to do that. Not allowed to march in the streets. So, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, man, eventually people are gonna say enough is enough. Eventually people are gonna say, okay, all right. And this is what you get. If we'd have listened to Kaepernick 4 years ago and took it seriously, and actually did some fundamental change in the way that police engage with people, we wouldn't be in this situation right now, would we? So, I mean, it is what it is. And yeah, there were tons of veterans who were saying, I fought for the right to Kaepernick to kneel and all the rest of it. So it's just a certain type of narrative that right-wing media was able to, it was red meat for their constituency, obviously. Great deep dive on the Sons of Liberty in your early vid, an example of idealism versus reality where they romanticize the Sons and ignore the bad stuff they did. Well, yeah. And again, I'm not particularly certain that what the Sons of Liberty did was totally wrong from a secular perspective. Now, as a follower of Jesus, obviously threats and intimidation is not good, but as a secularist, it got the point across, and it was what precipitated the Revolutionary War and things of that nature. So from that perspective, I'm not saying that what the Sons did was wrong. All I am saying is it is hypocritical for anybody who lionizes the Sons of Liberty, Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, anybody who lionizes those people and says those people are heroes. You cannot say that those people are heroes and then simultaneously say that the looters and the rioters are animals. That's a completely logically inconsistent thing to say. That was the only point I was making about the Sons. Here's Alan Hurd. Kaepernick is a bigot that was raised by white parents. What does he have to protest? Well, there you go. This sort of, again, this is what happens. There are certain types of white people who don't want black people to protest at all about anything. We should just accept Walter Scott and Trayvon and Eric Garner and Philando Castile and George Floyd. We should just accept it and quietly and politely just go on with it. There's some white people that believe that, and I'll just say that type of mentality is dangerous for everybody, because that type of mentality is what precipitates situations like this. I think if you're in a situation again where, by God's grace, there's a Kaepernick who will peacefully, and again, I disagree with Kaepernick taking any direction from Nate Boyd in the first place, but be that as it may, the next time you run into a black guy who's going to peacefully tell you that this is something that needs to change, we probably should listen to him. Where's Sori? I think she's taking a shower. Don't worry, the real star of the show is coming. What's up, Daniel Keene? How do you disperse the rioters without dispersing the protesters? That's a good point. That's true. The looters and the rioters were mostly white people. We know that. But, who cares about details? I do believe the Boston Tea Party was in fact a riot and could be construed as looting if that is acceptable to you. But these protests and riots are not. You need to reevaluate how you think about others. Yeah. What's up, Tristan or Tristram? Tristram. That's a good point. Sori's busy looting a lady footlocker. Zonia's here to burn down the fireside. Do you agree with Antifa? No, I'm not a fan of Antifa at all. Not even a little bit. I'm not a fan of Antifa at all. Then, even if there were reforms made to how police interact with people, there would still be those bad apples that likely wouldn't follow them, and these things could still happen. Well, Leah, here's the thing. I'm not one of these people that says, oh, it's just a few bad apples. What I've consistently said is that there's a few poison apple. A poison apple will kill you. And the bad apples will stay there and watch them kill you. That's the norm. When you see, Leah, if you want to convince me that these are just a few bad apples and that the vast majority of the police force are not bad apples, do me a favor and send me 3 videos where you see the cops policing each other when they're abusing people. So get me a template where a cop is abusing a prisoner or somebody that they have in their custody, and then show me these videos where these hero cops start going after each other. So when you got something like I said, I didn't watch the video, but I'm assuming that uh, Mr. Floyd was down, and there were 3 other cops that just stood there and did nothing for 8 minutes and 46 seconds or something like that. Am I going to say that the one white cop, he was a bad cop, but the other Gestapo who stood there and let it happen, that they were good people? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's one poison apple in the batch, and the rest of them are bad apples. And then you got 1 or 2 that'll that actually have some integrity about them. Well, you're not going to see anything good recorded. Well, that's not true. A lot of these cops have the dash cam, right? They got those body cams. Although those cops that just killed the cook, the barbecue guy a couple days ago, all 3 of the cops involved, none of them had their body cams on for that situation. Mm-hmm. So it could be recorded. It could be recorded. Here's disaster. Boston Tea Party was done against a tyrannical monarchy that levied taxes without representations. Almost all politicians in Black communities are also Black, so there's almost full representation. Hey, Mr. Disaster, what do you think Samuel Adams and his boys would have done if some of the British troops would have knelt on the neck of a subdued settler for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? You think they would have had a discussion about it? If these people were willing to burn down people's businesses and intimidate them and kidnap them for taxes, what do you think they would have done for something like that? That's a silly argument. That's a silly argument. You guys got enough kids for a small army. No worries. Good point. That's a good point. Why watch it? Why not try to stop it? 8 minutes is a long time. That's true. But again, Goth Mom, that is a person that has a slave mentality. People with slave mentalities will be quick to kill each other and will never kill their oppressor. That's a perfect example. An officer who turns their body camera off should immediately be charged with destroying evidence. I agree, Catastrophe, but at the same time, all 3 of them did it. And I keep hearing about all these good cops, and all the bad cops are the exception. So I keep hearing. That's one of the reasons I didn't go to the protest today, because people always want me to speak, and I'm not giving out the general party line that people want to hear in these types of situations. So I recused myself. Here's Thomas Williams. They're making George Floyd out to be some kind of hero now, but he was actually a criminal. Don't agree with the way he was killed, but don't forget he was a criminal. There we go. And this brother's going to say he's not a racist at all. Now, I'm not going to kick this guy out of the chat. This is how they are. This is how they think. So you got to be a minister of the gospel with a completely perfect record to get any sort of justice. And this is why cities get burned down. That right there. That's why this is why cities get burned down, and this is why people die. That right there. Doesn't matter that the guy led a men's group, and there's pictures of him holding up his Bible and things like that, talking about how God changed his life. And the last video he shot was him talking to Black people about Black on Black gun violence. Nope, he was a criminal. I mean, it's terrible he died, but he was a criminal. Don't forget he was a criminal. There you go. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Vin, what percentage of the police force do you say are good intention and actually try to do the right thing? Well, again, Leah, Leah, there's a story in the Bible. Now keep in mind, I had both of my brothers were in law enforcement. What I was doing cannot be construed as law enforcement, but both of my brothers were in law enforcement. My other brother's in a very, very high select group of law enforcement officers that only, X% of people even qualify for. So I am not speaking from ignorance or from prejudice. Leah, there's a story in the Bible. Jesus comes down, he's talking to Abraham, he says, yo, I'm about to destroy this city named Sodom. And then Abraham goes, are you going to destroy the righteous with the wicked? And God says, no, I'm not going to destroy the righteous with the wicked. Give me a number. And so they're going, what if there's 100 people? What if there's this? What if there's that? And finally he gets it down to like 10. And Jesus said, all right, if there's 10 righteous people, I won't destroy the city. Well, you know the story. There was not 10 righteous people there. He destroyed the freaking city. Now, here's what I'll tell you, Leah. If you're telling me that the vast majority of cops are good cops, get me these videos where the cops hold each other accountable as one of them is abusing somebody else. When they do these unlawful arrests, when they pull down the mask of a protester and spray him in the face, show me these videos where the cops are holding each other accountable. Show me 3, Leah. Do you think Candace Owens is hot? No. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. If you support Trump, you're automatically a Coco supporting white supremacist. I don't believe that. That's not true. There's a lot of people who that look like me that support Trump because they think it's a better strategic angle for a black agenda. Whoa, great old one. I appreciate you. Now, I can't say there are no good cops. I'm just saying I don't believe they're the majority. I think they're the minority. What's up, Soldier Vike? Thoughts on Mattis's comments on Trump? Yeah, I quoted Mathis in the latest Middle America video, and yeah, I mean, I think he was spot on. And Mattis is not someone that you can accuse of being a leftist, liberal, whatever. Do you think Trinity from the Matrix is hot? You know, a lot of people say Sori looks like Trinity. You know, being from where I am culturally, I like a little shape, and Trinity was kind of skinny. But I'm sure a lot of people think she's hot. I'm sure, you know, I mean, she played a legendary figure. Come on. What percentage of black voters? I think Trump had, I honestly believe before the last 3 months, I thought Trump was going to win by a landslide. Not so much now. Not so much now. Do you feel the climate of racism among police in the USA? Well, I mean, again, I'll have to think a little bit longer about that. Freddie, the good cops are good apples that aren't turned bad by the poison ones. Good point. Do you think Neo from the Matrix was hot? That's really not my thing, but I could definitely perceive people thinking that he was hot. You know, I mean, you know, it's Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is kind of like the last cultural Christ figure we have. So, inshallah, sure. Law enforcement is a fraternity and cover each other's behavior like marital infidelity, domestic violence, and drug use. 100% factual. And again, I'm saying this as a person who has brothers in law enforcement. So I'm not saying this from anyway. Yeah, I think Trump is vulnerable. I thought that you know, like I said, I thought that he was really gonna really blow it up here. But his handling of COVID and the handling of this situation is no bueno. Do you think you'll see another war on U.S. soil in our lifetime? I hear this brought up a lot. Like, no, I don't think that there's going to be this giant race war or any sort of war on U.S. soil. I don't think that's going to happen because, like I said, black people are still too busy killing each other. You're not really seeing black folks loading up and going after I'll start believing that that would be an issue when people organize and take over a police station, start executing people. Then I'd say, okay, we're in trouble, but that's not happening. Black folks are still shooting each other all up in Chicago and all the rest of it. They're not going after the people that's actually trying to eliminate us. So I don't think that that's ever going to happen. He blew a slam dunk election in 3 months. He really did. He really did. Oh, here's police have to deal with the worst of the worst. That can change someone. You know who else has to deal with the worst of the worst, Mick? The U.S. Marine. And they've got ROE, and they're held to a higher level of discipline when their lives are literally on the line every day than patrolmen. So miss me with that. If you don't have the mental constitution to deal with the quote worst of the worst, then policing is not the profession for you. But you do bring something up, is that I think we need to have more stringent. You know, my brother, in order to get into the group that he was in, had to go through extraneous psychological background checks, physical exertion, yada yada yada, to get to where he is. And his first case, he got assigned to Houston. I was in Houston 2012-ish, dealing with a different organization, but my brother got assigned to Houston. And his first case, there was a guy, and the folks my brother goes after are literally the worst of the worst, people you see on TV. And they pulled the guy over, and the guy had, my brother said, keep your hands on the steering wheel. And the guy kept dropping his hand. And this is literally my brother's first engagement. So my brother pulls back, resets, and his buddy's on the other side. And there's there's things that you say and signal that when to engage somebody. My brother resets and he says, put your hands back on the steering wheel. The guy had his hand under his seat. And then his buddy came over. And anyway, long story short, they apprehended the guy. And sure enough, there was a 9mm under that guy's seat. So my brother exercised a ridiculous amount of patience and restraint, but that had to do with his training and how stringent his training in the background was. So you bring up a point. I don't care that the cop has to see the worst of the worst. That doesn't excuse anything for me, and I'm not going to cry any tears for him. But what I will say, though, is that you're highlighting a fact that these folks are undertrained. The guy that shot Philando Castile, you could see that the guy completely lost his mind. I mean, he completely lost his shit, and he ended up killing Philando Castile. The dude that shot Tamir Rice had already been reported as a guy who had psychological issues during training, and they pushed him through anyway. So I think a lot of this is obviously systemic racism, but a lot of this is also the bar for being a police officer, getting a gun or the badge is obviously way too low. And we need more stringent training and more stringent requirements to become a police officer. So that's what I would say. Nope, this was not in Maine. This is in Houston. You don't really get a lot of big fish in Maine. It was in Houston. So, yeah. What's up, Clyde? Vin, do you agree with Chauvin's charge being raised to second-degree murder, or you think it will be harder to prove? I think the fact that it went on for so long, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, somebody messaged me and said he was not moving for like 2.5 of those minutes. And I also think that the protesters and rioters are holding this thing hostage to where if this guy gets let off, it's not going to be like Trayvon or like with Eric Garner. I hope you guys realize the folks who choked Eric Garner to death went on paid administrative leave, went back to work, and didn't get fired until the Democratic primaries about 2.5, 3 months ago. You have to understand that. And we did nothing. We did nothing. So I don't think it's going to be the same this time. If he walks free, people are going to die. I'll just say it that way. I myself have had to talk people off the ledge. So I don't think that's going to happen. Chauvin apparently worked with George Floyd. Yeah. Very strange situation. Here's Tejas. The mistake people make is an irrational problem. It's an authoritarian state problem. No, people can walk and chew gum at the same time, Tejas. It can be both, and it is both. Whoa, zombie holic. My father was police for 25 years. He's seen it all, even had a child die in his arms. He's disappointed in how the police handled the Floyd case. My dad says that police training is lacking, and amongst other things. Yeah, zombie. Yeah. Now, my brother's group that he's in, the government spends a pretty penny on each one of them. And so they are trained and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained and trained. And they have a very low rate. It's interesting. They have a very low rate of killing assailants, and they have a very low rate of being killed. So a lot of it has to do with your training. Anytime, you have any of these types of guys, like if you're doing special forces or whatever, or HRT or whatever, you get so much training. Like you're trained over and over again. You come back from an op, and all you're doing is training. So it definitely has an effect. That type of rigorous lifestyle weeds out the vast majority of people, and then you get the cream of the crop, and then you train the hell out of them, and then you get very good results. But when the bar is so low that anybody can become a police officer, then you get what you get. What's your thought on the Drew Brees deal getting slammed for having an opinion? Yeah, Drew Brees, I'm not a fan of cancel culture, outrage culture. And I think the backlash against Drew Brees and this guy named Fangio, who said he didn't see any racism in football. I think it's indicative of how infantile the current black zeitgeist is in regard to this entire struggle. Because, Dr. King talked about the white moderate, and he said he was more disappointed in the white moderate than he is with the KKK. I've said it a million times. I've got a guy in this channel. I'm not going to name him because people are going to pile on him, but the guy is the guy's a self-proclaimed Nazi, racist, whatever. I go, okay, that guy's the enemy, but I can still be congenial with your enemy, because you just have to know who your enemies are. So when Drew Brees, who has complete access to Colin Kaepernick, could have called Kaepernick and said, what did you mean by this? Colin Kaepernick has gone on record on a multitude of occasions, said he was not about disrespecting the flag. He talked about Nate Boyer, all this stuff. For Drew Brees to completely overlook that and say, nope, you're disrespecting the flag in light of the current situation, I appreciate that he would say that, because I go, okay, that guy is not on the team. And, but black people are so desperate for allies, and they're so desperate to be accepted by, important people in certain situations and all that. And there are a lot of black people are still begging and pleading for white acceptance, that when they hear something like that from a guy like Drew Brees, immediately they want him to cover it over with some apology that I guess he put on Instagram later. And I think that's ridiculous. I think the overall cultural zeitgeist with black folk right now is infantile. And because of that, you have people having a conniption for a guy who's telling you what he really believes about you and your movement, and how much respect or lack thereof he has for you. And I think it's unfortunate. So there you go. That's my take on it. Vin, if you were standing in front of the officers, what would you say to them? I wouldn't say anything to them. I wouldn't talk. That's as much as I'd say. If the Democrats wanted to win, they would have nominated Tulsi. It's true. That's a very good point, man with two eyes. Bible verses for anxiety and self-confidence. Yeah. Let's see. John chapter 16 is a very, very good text. It says, Jesus says, in this world, you will have tribulation, or you will have trouble. And then he says, take heart, or take courage. I have overcome the world. And so he's saying, because he's about to go to the cross, right? He's telling this to the disciples the night he's about to die, because he knew that they were going to have a bad freaking 3 days, right? And so he says, you're going to have trouble in this world. So that alleviates anxiety, because a lot of anxiety is fear of perceived trouble or trauma. When you accept that the world that you live in is going, you are assigned a certain measure of trouble and tribulation every day, whether it's a stub toe or a compound fracture. You accept that that's going to happen, but then that you know that in Jesus, you're going to overcome all of that because he rose from the dead has been very helpful to me. Because I've got medically diagnosed and treated anxiety. I mean, I don't take those medications anymore. If you are assigned medications, please take them. A lot of Christians will tell you, just read your Bible, take your meds. Okay. It just so happened that by God's grace, for me personally, I didn't need those meds for anxiety anymore. But that passage is very, very encouraging to me, because it encompasses sort of a realist approach to the world. Bad things are going to happen, but you also have the ideal of Christ, who endured the worst and God brought the best out of it. So that helps me a lot with my anxiety. And self-confidence. There's a passage in Corinthians. Paul is one of my favorite people. People always say, Vin, you arrogant bastard, but whatever. But Paul says that he, among all the apostles, was last of all. He was untimely born. And then he says, but I outworked all of them. And then he says, not I, but the grace of God that was within me. And so as far as self-confidence goes, you have to understand that if the Bible is really true, and this is all true, then you're carrying divine power within yourself to accomplish and crush whatever goal you have, whether it's going to the fridge to get an orange juice, or starting a YouTube channel, or trying to make some selection from some elite group, or trying to do something that's never been done before. You've got this divine power inside of you that is powerful enough to create universes by one sentence, and that power is in you. And then you go and crush. Another passage that's important to me is Genesis 1, where God says, let us make man and give him dominion over the sea and over the earth and over the livestock and everything in it. And so what that tells me, and what I've taught my boys and my girls, is that means we are to dominate our given area, right? So whether it's cleaning your bed, your room, you're to dominate. Whether it's your kitchen, you need to dominate that kitchen. Whether it's YouTube, dominate YouTube. If it's a selection course, dominate the selection course. You were born as a vice regent on the earth among other vice regents, and all of our jobs are to go out and conquer together. So those are passages that help me with self-confidence. What's up, Ben Moen? Ben Moen in the house. Rich Aaron in the house. Do you think it's complete arrogance that because the U.S. is collapsing, that people think it's biblical while countries have collapsed? Yes, it is the height of Christian evangelical arrogance. I remember when the second plane in the tower hit, and I said, okay, people are going to die. And somebody else said, it's the end of the world. And I was like, no, it's not the end of the world. Like, this happens in Israel. I was one of these weird kids that used to watch C-SPAN every day. I said, this shit is happening all over the place. It's not the end of the world, but people are definitely going to die in bunches now. But yeah, it's the height of American arrogance that we think, God forbid, something happened to us, it must be the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's not even close. We're all going to be okay, by the way. Would you think that a police force run on the neighborhood level, say people from the area, are selected by the community and given power less centralized in the current model? Oh, Andrew Jones, that is very intriguing to me. That almost sounds like, I've been learning a lot about anarchism, actually thanks to the people in this channel, many of whom I've fought with here. But that almost sounds like the way that an anarchist would suggest that we have some sort of police force. My understanding now of anarchy isn't that these are people who are talking about no rule of law whatsoever, but I think it's closer to what Noam Chomsky said, where he basically said that it's incumbent upon an anarchist society for people in authority to have to justify their authority pretty much on a daily basis. Like, you've got to justify that authority. And so if you had a police force that was elected by the surrounding community that then enforced the laws of the surrounding community, that would be a form of justified authority. And I think that would actually work pretty well, because that would really close the gap between, because right now the power is coming from the federal, at the federal level, and even at state representational level, the power is not coming from the actual people. So yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting idea. I think that's an interesting idea. Vin, could one of the bystanders been able to physically stop the cop's position on Floyd's neck even for a moment? Yeah. Yes, they could have. But, you know, I think some of this has to do with people's naivete that, oh, they're on camera. Well, I don't know if anarchism is dumb. Sent you an email. Don't judge my words. Love you, man. Love you too, Jay. No, I never judge you. I never judge you. Police in Britain don't have guns, and this kind of thing does not happen very often. Wasn't Jesus Antifa? Look, I don't call Jesus anything. I don't say that. Yeah, I think we're back now. I don't say that Jesus was a socialist. I don't say he was a communist. I don't say he was a capitalist. I think it's very, very. Thank you, Jay. Good Lord, I just saw that notification. Thank you very freaking much, Dave Dispirited. I have a hard time saying that Jesus is anything, because I feel like fascism. I'm sure Jesus is against fascism. Is Jesus for beating the hell out of elderly people because the woman's walking around with an American flag? No, obviously not. Hold on, guys. Let's see. Oh, she's going to kill me for that. Are we back? Are we back? Hold on. Let me disable the internet on a bunch of these things. Somebody asked me a question I forgot before the lag started. So if you could ask me that question. No, I don't think anybody's playing Fortnite, T-Waz. Not right now. As a matter of fact, the other kids are with their mom, with their mother. So nobody's playing Fort Guy. It's the FBI. I'm not gonna say that. I'm back. What did I miss? Nothing, Tasco. Can you react to Tool Demon Cleaner? Demon Cleaner. That is probably the craziest title I've ever heard in my life. Demon Cleaner. Wouldn't Jesus be mad that people worship a flag? Absolutely, Rick. And that's why we can't say that Jesus is on anybody's team. We can be on his team, but he's not on our team. I know I got here, but where's Sori? Sori's hanging out with Orion or taking a bath. I'm not sure. Eaten by Ghoul sent an email with a link to Anarchist FAQ. You genuinely want to know more? It's extremely detailed, though. No, yes, that's what I want. I'm very intrigued by the anarchy. You know, it's like when people say, "Oh, I would be a Christian if I was presented Christianity the way that you present it." I would probably say that I'm an anarchist if I was introduced to anarchism by Noam Chomsky and BM Fan and Zonia. I'd probably be more amenable to anarchism. So, yeah, I'm ready to.